Hello everyone, welcome along to the Sports Corner. How are we all doing today? It's draw day. We're back once again. For those of you that were watching yesterday with the Champions League draw, welcome along to the Europa League draw this morning. It's early morning start today. Of course, yesterday's draw being around about 5 o'clock. It was nice to have a later draw. Today, bit of echo, apologies. We've got the morning draw instead, starting at about 11 a.m. UK time, as you can see in the top right hand corner. We have got a timer going for roughly about when the draw should start, although saying that, I would probably say give it about another 5 or so minutes on top of the 15 for it to start, because of course they do like to go through the rules and everything in between ahead of the draw. But this is it, the Europa League draw, a competition that I have to say is improving year on year on year. You can see some of the pots going along, the teams that have qualified for this competition, like we did yesterday in the Champions League draw. We will go over all of the teams again. We'll talk through them, how they've made it through. Of course, a few of these teams are making it through last night in the actual qualification stages in the playoff round. A few quite interesting games actually last night, which has allowed some of these teams to make it within to the four pots. But we've got a few new debutants as well. You can see West Ham, of course, Mikel Antonio, no doubt going to be a key figure for them. But let's take the intro off the screen. How are we all doing? Just me today for the Europa League draw, and it's also just me for the conference draw a little bit later on. Of course, we did have Rowan and Kieran yesterday for the Champions League draw, but with it being early morning, it's a little bit harder to get people on in the morning because, well, everybody's usually in bed. But yeah, we've got the draw coming up in about 15 minutes time. Do tell us in the chat if you are supporting any of the teams that are in the draw. Usually we do get a lot of Celtic and Rangers fans that come into the building when the Europa League draws are on. So if you are a Celtic or Rangers fan, do tell us in the chat, because usually it gets quite feisty in the chat when those two are together, as you would expect. But yeah, this is for me a competition that, as I said before, has really developed over the last couple of years. Take over probably the last decade of the Europa League. 10 years ago, this was deemed as the Mickey Mouse Trophy, to put it politely. And I think you could even look back 5 or 6 or so years ago, and even some Premier League clubs now would have still deemed it as a Mickey Mouse Trophy. But now, in today's world, in today's society, the Europa League has become a very important competition. It's become a competition that I believe every club now in world football, even those English clubs that didn't deem it as a good competition, now deem it as a very, very serious trophy. And most importantly, it does, of course, give that qualification to the Champions League next season, which has become probably the key part, the key aspect of the Europa League. The fact that you get the qualification to next year's competition. You've only got to look at last season's 2 finalists in Villarreal and Manchester United. Manchester United, of course, already having Champions League football, so it didn't really matter too much for them. But for Villarreal, they were sat potentially with the chance of going into the Europa Conference League. But of course, after winning the competition in quite scintillating fashion, I guess you could say, with a penalty shootout, they did go on and get themselves Champions League football. So he's really, really key now, the use of the Europa League in terms of making the biggest competition in world football. But seeing what you guys have been saying in the chat, Kyle is in the building. How are we doing today, Kyle? Hopefully you are all good as always. But before we go through the pots and the teams, and we really delve into each team and what they've done realistically to get to this competition, don't forget that right after this draw, at around about, I think it's about 12:15, we've also got the first ever Europa Conference League draw. Now, of course, if you're not aware, maybe you've been living under a rock for the last couple of months or years. Europa Conference League, brand new competition that started. It's going to have the likes of Spurs, Tottenham, Feyenoord, all in that competition. I said Spurs and Tottenham, I said Spurs twice. Spurs, Roma, Feyenoord, Basel. There are a few quite interesting teams in there from across Europe. So if you do want to check out who Tottenham and Roma and all those other big sides get, then do join us later on, because I'll be back again around about 12:15 for that draw, which will be coming up probably, I would have said, about half an hour or less after this draw has finished. Of course, Europa League draw does take quite some time because of the amount of teams involved in the actual competition itself. Kurt's in the building as well. How are we doing, Kurt? Hopefully you're all good as always. Welcome along to the stream. And do tell us as well in the chat what you thought of the draw yesterday. You know, if you weren't here yesterday and you saw the draw and you did see your team, of course, get pulled out. For example, Kurt, Man United yesterday, of course, getting Villarreal, Atalanta and Young Boys. Do tell us what you thought of the draw yesterday. But we've got about 10 to 15 minutes left before the draw. Jordan's asked, where can I watch the draw? If you want to watch the draw, I would highly recommend search BT Sports YouTube. They're doing the draw from about 11 o'clock. So as soon as the draw kind of gets into gear, I think they're going live. So that's in around about, it should be in about 10 or so minutes time. But yeah, BT Sport YouTube. If you want to come on, watch us, see the reaction to the draw, you know, as we talk through it, then come and stay here. Because as I said, not all of you have access to the draw, so it's worth sticking around in here if you want. And as I said, we've got all the groups set up, as you'll see on your screen now. There you go. So of course, we will update the graphics as we go along with the draw. It might just take a little bit of time for them to update, of course, because of the way that the draw works. It gets all really confusing later on, politely. Right, let's have a look at the pots. 10 minutes to go until draw time. Carl's saying, I like the Europa League. It's always written off by some. I think it's more entertaining and a better watch than the Champions League sometimes. And I have to agree with you. I think I was a little bit disappointed last season with the knockout stages. I think the knockout stages didn't really have many exciting moments in them from what I can remember. There wasn't many fascinating comebacks, apart from the really early stages where it was the round of 32, which is, of course, expected because, you know, 16 games, you're expecting at least one of them to be a thriller. But hopefully we get more thrills and spills in this season's competition. As we start off with pot number 1. And as you can see, pot number 1, of course, got quite a few big dogs in there this season. Olympic Lyon, back in European football again, of course, missed out on European football last season. It was a pretty interesting final end, wasn't it, to Ligue 1 last year? But they are in the Europa League, and they've got a few important players on their side. Hussam Aouar might not even be there in a few days' time, of course, with the January transfer window still going on. Napoli, of course, of Syria, interesting side again. I'm trying to think who's in charge of Napoli these days. It seems to be a constant whirlwind of different managers at the club. I think it's... I really can't remember off the top of my head. I don't know why I thought Gattuso for a second, but I don't think he's there. But either way, Napoli, they've got Koulibaly, Manolas, they've got Mertens, plenty of good players on their side that could make a difference. Of course, Napoli, no doubt, always get themselves into European football, no matter what the competition is. So I'd be expecting big things of Napoli this season. And the same can be said about Bayer Leverkusen. Again, another team that were actually in the competition last year. You'll remember they were drawn in the same group as Nice and Slavia Prague. Very interesting group that one was. It was a really topsy-turvy group. But in the end, Bayer Leverkusen getting out before being knocked out, I think it was actually by Young Boys last season. So very disappointing campaign for the Germans. As I said, Leverkusen will be hoping this season they can go on a much better run in this competition and not get knocked out in the very early stages. As Chris is in the building. How are we doing, Chris? Welcome along to the stream. Hopefully you're all good as always. And Kurt's saying he's doing good. Fantastic to hear, Kurt. And he's very happy with the draw for Man United, which I definitely agree with you. Very good draw for you guys. Dinamo Zagreb next. Now, you'll remember we spoke about Zagreb yesterday. Knocked out by FC Sheriff in the Champions League qualification stages. So they dropped down to the Europa League qualifiers and did make it through in the end. Of course, we know Dinamo Zagreb last season, arguably the best game of the tournament, I think you could say, between Zagreb and Tottenham. Absolutely unbelievable comeback from Mislav Orsic with a hat-trick. Again, Dinamo Zagreb will be very, very interesting to watch this season. Lazio next. They are in charge by Maurizio Sarri now. They have lost, of course, a few players here and there. But, again, another side expected to do big things. They've got Ciro Immobile. They've got Luis Alberto. Lucas Leiva, of course. They've got a few very good players on their side. And I would expect Lazio, again, to be one of the favourites to win this competition. Although Alexa's in the chat. How are we doing, Alexa? Good to see you as always, buddy. Long time no see. He's put it perfectly. This competition is totally open, and I love it. No real favourites to win it. And the thing is, when we go further down the pots in a second, you're spot on. I think there is real potential here. for this Europa League draw to have some very, very tasty groups. A lot of big clubs around the 4 pots. I'd probably say apart from pot 4, the other 3 pots are all very evenly mixed, and it should make for some very fascinating groups. And talking about fascinating teams, AS Monaco. We spoke about them yesterday. The goal that sent them down to the Europa League was pretty... it was unavoidable, to put it politely, but not a nice goal to concede. Monaco, really, really excited to see how they do in this competition. Obviously, they've got Ben Yedder. They brought in Boadou from Alkmaar. Brought in a few other players as well over the last few weeks. They are a side that I have big expectations upon this season. Got a very good key squad. Will be challenging, no doubt, for the top 4 again this season in Liga. I would expect them to do pretty big things in the Europa League. And then, of course, last team in pot 1, SC Braga. You could arguably say probably the first or second team in which people will want from the pot. But look, Braga, no pushovers. We said it before yesterday with the likes of Sporting and Porto. Braga always making the top 6, always getting themselves European football. They are never an easy side to face. I always think Portuguese sides are very, very well-managed teams, well-structured. And Braga, for me, again, is one of those sides that I think could be no pushover. As just looking in the chat, how are we all doing? Christian saying about Red Star Belgrade or Crvena Zvezda. Best of luck for you, Christian, with the draw. Or Christijan, however you want me to pronounce it. Curtis asks, where can I watch the draw on YouTube? It is on BT Sports YouTube channel. It should go live in about 5 or so minutes' time. And then Alexis asked, will you be covering the Conference League? Yes, we are covering the Conference League in a little bit. I should be back on around about 12:15. So if you check our YouTube channel, or just search the Sports Corner on YouTube. The video is already scheduled. If not, check out our Twitter, and the link is in the description for that. And there will be a link which will go live at 12:15 when we do go live with that. But yeah, we are going to be covering the Conference League a little bit later on. I'm very excited for that one as well. I don't know if I'm the only person that's repping the Conference League, but there is a part of me that thinks that that is going to be a very welcomed addition to the line of European competitions, I guess you could say. Let's move on to pot 2. Again, I mean, this is a fascinating pot, isn't it? Full of teams with plenty of European history and high star quality. Starting off with Celtic, who beat AZ Alkmaar yesterday in a quite entertaining qualifying fixture, if I have to be honest with you. Ange Postecoglou going to be under pressure to get Celtic to do well in this competition, but again, we know what Celtic bring to the table. We saw them last year when they were in the group alongside Lille and Milan. Arguably one of the toughest groups I think we've had in the last couple of years in this competition. And Celtic again will be expected to maybe not do big things in the competition, but at least make it out the group stages, depending on who they get, and maybe even further. Frankfurt, as my voice was about to go there. Frankfurt next of Germany. Again, another team that were fascinating last season in the Bundesliga. Very nearly squeezed themselves into the Champions League before a end of season kind of collapse, very similar to what Leicester did in the season before, where they just collapsed with a couple of games left to go. I'm really excited for Frankfurt this season. They've been able to keep a hold of some of their key players. Of course, they did lose Andre Silva, but they've got the likes of Filip Kostic. They brought in Rafael Santos Borre, the Colombian striker. I'm expecting Frankfurt to be a very tough opposition in this competition. Of course, the last time they were in the competition, they made it all the way to the semi-finals against Chelsea, if you remember, and got knocked out on penalties. Red Star Belgrade next, or Crvena Zvezda, as they are pronounced. Of course, Christijan will be hoping that they get a decent draw in this competition, but we know what Red Star Belgrade bring to the table. A very, very beautiful atmosphere. Yes, it is hostile, but it is a very set of passionate fans. And I think Red Star Belgrade is always an intimidating place to go, but that is a real credit to the fans and, you know, the atmosphere they bring. It can help them massively, and I think Red Star Belgrade, they've got a few decent players on their side. I think recently they signed Dragovic from Bayer Leverkusen. He's a brilliant addition at the back for their side, and we've seen it before. They have brought a few shocks in the past, Red Star Belgrade, and I'm pretty sure they could bring a few more shocks again in this tournament. Leicester City, a team, of course, we know they've made European football over the last couple of seasons, had that brilliant run in the Champions League a couple of years ago. They were in the competition last season, and I can't quite remember who knocked them out in the end. But all I can remember is they coasted pretty much in their group. But apart from that, we know they've got quality Leicester. Apologies. Daka, Vardy, Tielemans, Maddison. They've got quality players left, right and centre. And no doubt, again, Leicester City will be expected to go really far in this competition. I would have said quarters, maybe even semis, depending on who they get in the groups and in the knockout phases. Rangers, we saw them going on an incredible run last season. They were knocked out in the end by Slavia Prague, I think it was. Brilliant run from the Scottish side. Again, very similar to Celtic. They'll be expected to make it out the group, and depending on who they get after that, it will be a bit of a task for them. But we know that the Scottish atmospheres of Ibrox Park and Celtic Stadium can always be fascinating and really intimidating as well. Lokomotiv Moscow, the Russian side, again, another team that always seemed to get into European football over the last couple of seasons. They were in the Champions League last year and didn't really get to do much in the end. So hopefully the Europa League is a better stage for them. They have lost a few key players. Gregor Skrikoviak left the club quite recently and moved on. So they are missing a few players here and there. But I think they've got the likes of Fedor Smolov, who's still at the club. A few key players that could make some difference for them. Genk of the Belgian League, again another side that have been brilliant over the last couple of seasons in European football, always tend to make it there. I could see them doing quite well this season. And then the final team, PSV Eindhoven, they dropped down after losing to Benfica in Champions League qualification stages. But the likes of Zahavi, Goetze are all going to be they're just two quality players that they've got. They've got more than that. PSV, again, will be a very, very exciting side to watch. We saw them last season against Olympiacos in the knockout stages. I watched that game and it was an absolutely fantastic tie. Let's hope that PSV can bring more quality to the table again. We are still waiting for the draw to actually start. BT haven't actually started their stream yet. So as soon as the draw starts, of course, I will get the draw screen up and we will get it underway. And in fact, there we go. Talk about the devil. The stream has just started. It usually takes around about 5 or so minutes extra because, of course, they do go through the rules and the implications of the draw. So we might have to wait a little bit longer for it to start. But as I said, as soon as it begins, we will go straight into it. And, of course, I'll get the actual load up and the setup for the draw up. But as for now, let's move to pot 3. And going back to a comment Alexa put a little bit earlier on, and I'll go through some of your comments now. He says that pot 3 is miles tougher than pot 2. And I have to completely agree with you. I mean, look at some of the quality in pot 3. Again, teams with lots of experience in Europe before. And a couple of teams mixed in there that haven't had much European experience in the last couple of years. But looking at what you guys have said in the chat, Cal saying if Monaco can learn how to finish properly, then they could win it, but I don't see it. I think for them, probably a quarter or a semis would be a good run for them. Chris said, I only make Europa League predictions when Champions League group stages end, because that stupid rule of third place dropping into Europa League. And yeah, of course, it's in the same respect for this competition. The third place teams, by the way, this is new, of course, to the Europa League. Because of the addition of the Europa Conference League, teams that finish in third place will now drop down to the Europa Conference League. So, again, I don't think, in my opinion, that rule should count. But it does mean that teams could drop down to the green side of the European football, to the Conference League. As Daz is in the building as well. How are we doing, Daz? He's put, morning, Josh. How are you today? I'm doing fantastically well. I hope you're all good too. Look at a few more comments. Kieran in the building. How are we doing, Kieran? Oh, you're good this morning. At least you don't have to sit there and watch the draw this time, wondering who United are going to get, especially with the knockout stages. He has made a fair point, though. Apparently the song is the same for the Conference and the Europa. That's just pure laziness, isn't it, from him? Very lazy. Alfie's in the building. How are we doing? Forza Lazio, best of luck for you, Alfie. I think the draw will probably be starting in about 5 or so minutes' time. And then Kyle saying, Leicester went out to Slavia Prague. There we go. Thank you very much, Kyle. On the ball for me. Right, let's have a look at pot 3 very quickly. Starting off with Marseille. Yes, very, very good side. You might have seen them, of course, being in a certain situation in Ligue 1 a few days ago, but they've got a brilliant side. They've got the manager, Jorge Sampaoli, big brute of a man, big brute of a team as well. Guendouzi, Payet, lots of quality players on their side. Very, very excited to see how Marseille do this season, although they have had a few financial issues. Ludogorets, very similar to Red Star Belgrade, hostile atmosphere, always getting to European football, should be brilliant to see how they do. Again, probably one of those sides where you don't want them because of the long trip to their stadium, but look, again, another side that deserve to be here with the experience that they've had over the last couple of years of making this competition. West Ham, what a side. The Londoners, a team that I think have deserved European football in the last couple of years. Look, maybe they haven't deserved it in the last couple of years based on their league position, but with the stadium that they've got, with some of the players that they've signed, I think 2 or 3 years ago when they signed Haller and Anderson and Fornals, I think we all sat there and we expected West Ham to maybe make the top 8 and get European football at some stage. They've finally done it, and they've got themselves into the Europa League. Again, I think West Ham will be a very tricky side to face. Moyes has got them organised. They're in a very good rhythm right now. They've looked pretty good in the Premier League at the start of the season. And I'm kind of excited to see the London Stadium with the Europa League on, because I think it's a stadium that definitely deserves European football, that's for sure. Real Sociedad saw them last season, of course, losing to Manchester United in the knockout stages. Again, another team with star quality in attack. Yarzabal, Isaac, to name 2 players that are quality for them. I really do think Real Sociedad will be expected to go at least to the quarters, maybe to the semis. Very, very good side. Another Spanish side this time, Real Betis, managed by Manuel Pellegrini. A very, very good team again. Another team like West Ham that should have arguably have had European football over the last couple of seasons, but they, just like West Ham, have struggled at points. Very nearly got relegated a few years ago, if I remember. But they're back into European football again. They've got the likes of Nabil Fekir, Sergio Canales, 2 very, very creative players. And again, they're going to be a very tough side to face under Manuel Pellegrini. Fenerbahce, we know what Fenerbahce bring to the table. Turkish side, quality team in Turkey. Very hostile atmosphere, isn't it, with the passionate Turkey fans. Got the likes of Ener Valencia, Mesut Ozil, to name a few of the players that were actually in qualification yesterday. I think they won 5-2. So certainly making a mark in the qualification stages. But no doubt a trip to Turkey should be quite fun for whoever gets them. Because it's always nice to be able to go over to the likes of Besiktas, Galatasaray, Fenerbahce. Always a fun experience. Russia, Spartak Moscow, of course. Again, the 2 Moscow sides in this competition. Of course, they can't face each other, which is a real shame. But Spartak Moscow got the likes of Quincy Promes. He's kind of the star man, isn't he, really, for them. But yeah, again, another team that have got quite decent experience on the board. And then Sparta Prague of the Czech Republic. Again, another team that, look, they don't have masses of quality, but they're always very tough to face. They've been in European football for quite a few years now. I think they were in a very tough group last season, as well as Burak's joined the stream. Hopefully overall good. Burak, I'm guessing, are you backing Fenerbahce? Best of luck if you are. You'll have to tell us in the chat what teams you are supporting today. But let's very quickly move on to the last pot. We're still waiting for the draw to start. If you were here yesterday, it took nearly an hour for the draw to start from when I went live. I think it will start in about 5 or so minutes time. I really do hope, because I'm trying to pad it out as much as I possibly can. But yeah, let's move on to the final pot. Look, pot 4 doesn't have as much quality in terms of the high caliber sides. But what it does have is a few teams, of course, that will have dropped down yesterday. You know, they would have been in Champions League qualification. They might have also been in Europa League qualification and won their games. And just looking at the teams, and of course who's in there, starting off with Rapid Vienna, of course, of Austria. Now, Rapid Vienna, if you don't know much about them, Austrian side tend to finish in the top 4 of the league. They beat Zoya of Ukraine yesterday 3-2, 6-2 on aggregate. Very, very good scoreline for them. In terms of their side, I'm trying to see if they've got any noticeable players on the team. They haven't really. But again, look, another team that might cause a few surprises. They're a very attacking side. They do tend to score a lot of goals. Galatasaray, they are the most noticeable team in pot 4. Look, Galatasaray, again, another team that I would, if I was a fan of a Europa League team, I wouldn't mind facing off against them just for a trip to Turkey. They've got the likes of Radamel Falcao in there. I'm trying to think of other players they've got off the top of my head. Feguli's in there as well. Ram Babel, I think he's still at the club these days. Look, Galatasaray is the toughest of the 4 teams in pot 4. And look, it could potentially maybe have a group of death potentially if they get drawn in with some of the other big teams across the 3 pots. Legia Warsaw of Poland. I don't think many people expected this one. Really, really good result from the Polish side against Slavia Prague yesterday. Beat them 4-3 on aggregate. Slavia Prague were down to 10 men actually in the 3rd minute. So already backs against the wall in that game. But Legia Warsaw, they've got Artur Buruc. You might remember him being a former Bournemouth player in the past. He's at the club. But apart from that, if you're not really keen on Polish football, you probably won't notice many of the players. They've got Andre Martins as well, a Portuguese footballer. He's been around the blocks for many years now. But again, not many people expecting them to make it through Legia Warsaw. And again, I think they'll be quite tough opposition going over to Poland. Midtjylland, they were in the Champions League last season. Unfortunately, not there this season, but they are in the Europa League. We saw them last season. I didn't really get to see much in terms of attacking quality because they came up against the likes of Liverpool and Ajax and Atalanta. But no doubt the Europa League will be a much better stage for the Danes. Look, they've got a few good players on the side. Mobile being one of them. Very, very key player for them. And look, I think Midtjylland are probably one of the harder teams to get in that side of the draw. Like Midtjylland, Ferencváros, we saw them last season. I have to say, for me, Ferencváros last year were quite actually entertaining to watch. They were in the group, of course, alongside Barcelona and Juventus. So it was quite tough, wasn't it, for them to really realistically get out of that group. But what they did bring to the table was, funnily enough, because they are from Hungary, they kind of did bring a Hungary-esque performance, didn't they, in terms of their Champions League group. Look, they didn't beat Barcelona or Juventus, but they certainly did give it a good go. And if they can bring that hard-working team spirit to the table, I really do think Ferencváros could do something in one of the groups, depending on who they get. As I've just seen the Legia Warsaw fans, they're in the building. Best of luck to you guys with who you get. Good performance last night against Slavia Prague. We do have Rowan, who is on the Sports Corner. He is a Slavia Prague fan, so he was a little bit gutted last night when Legia knocked him out. But very best of luck for you guys, because as I said, brilliant result last night. And it's actually quite nice to see Polish opposition in the Europa League, because I feel like it's not often. You know, we see Lech Poznan, I think, every once in a while, but it's nice to see a different side. I can't remember actually the last time Legia Warsaw were in European competition. But either way, moving on to the next team, Sturm Graz of Austria. Again, they were in European qualification yesterday. They beat Mura. I think it was 5-1 on aggregate in the end. Again, when you look at the team, they haven't really got any recognisable players for the typical European fan. But look, at the end of the day, again, Sturm Graz right now having a pretty good start to life in Austria this season, I believe. Scoring plenty of goals. If they can bring the goals to the table and put the ball in the back of the net, then again, Sturm Graz won't be the easiest side to face. Brøndby, I'm just trying to see where Brøndby came through last night. They must have been in Champions League qualification because they weren't in the Europa League qualification. Again, I don't know much about Brøndby. Danish side, I think. We'll have to see what they bring to the table. And then the final team, Royal Antwerp, came through last night. They were the last team to make it through on a penalty shootout against Ammonia Nicosia. Antwerp, they brought Radja Nainggolan to the club. They've got Jordan Lukaku and a couple of other players of notice. But apart from that, I think they were in the competition last season, Antwerp, and they didn't really do much at all in it, if I'm being honest with you. So that is the 4 pots completed. And luckily enough, I think we're about less than 5 minutes away from the draw starting. Of course, they're just bringing out now the 2 players that are going to be doing the draw for the Europa League. So we shouldn't be too far away from this draw starting. Literally, I think pretty much once Ranieri's out, or the Ranieri lookalike, then we should be good to go. But what I want to know from you guys in the chat while we do wait is tell me what team you support. And of course, if you are in the Europa League, who would you like to face in this Europa League 2021-22 group stages? Because I think, as I said before, you know, when you go through the pots, there are so many good teams scattered around, you know, all 3 pots. And as Alex alluded to earlier, I really do think that the pot everybody's going to be watching for is pot 3. I don't realistically think there's any teams in that pot that are going to be easy to face. You know, yes, there are teams in there that you would much prefer. Ludogorets, Spartak preferably. But that pot is much better, in my opinion, than what pot 2 is in terms of high star quality. But yes, we are waiting on Ranieri again, Bernaldo. Look, I think we're nearly 15 minutes in now, and we're still waiting for Ranieri to come out. I don't know what it is. They just love to pan out these draws and make them really, really long. But hopefully we will get there very, very shortly indeed. But when you look at the 4 pots, as I said before, there is a real opportunity here for some groups of deaths. You know, I'm looking. There's a chance that Napoli, Leicester, Sociedad and Galatasaray, for example, could all be drawn in the same group together, which, you know, if you were to look at that type of group, that's kind of like a Champions League group, if I'm being honest with you. Lots and lots of quality on the board. As Bernaldo says, have to support my French team, Marseille to the moon, and hopefully Marseille don't do too bad, because, well, let's see if they've got any players or people suspended after that certain incident with Nice not too long ago. But as you can see on the screen, we will go through the draw procedure very quickly for those of you that are wondering. You know, maybe you haven't actually watched the Europa League draw before. Pretty much, this is how it works. No teams from the same league can play against each other. Therefore, for example, if West Ham were to be drawn out in a group, they cannot be drawn with Leicester City. You can only draw teams from the same nation after the round of 16. It's likely that teams from Russia and Ukraine can't face off against each other. I don't know whether that rule is going to be in place or not, but I think that is very, very likely to happen. As Ranieri's out, here we go. It means we're going to be starting in about 2 seconds, which is very, very good indeed. In the case of associations with 2 or more representatives, clubs won't be split. Ignore that one. Of course, Europa League only on a Thursday night. That rule doesn't count in this competition. But the other rule does count. If a paired club is drawn, then sometimes, of course, it just goes mental, doesn't it? Other teams can be put into specific pots. It just gets all complicated. Watch us as it goes along. It's easier. Key dates. We'll come back to this in a little second. Of course, Europa League and Conference League is taking place at the same time. So these dates will be the same for the Conference League as well. First match day is in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. 16th of September is the first match day. And then it's pretty much every 2 weeks after that, all the way up to the 9th of December for the Europa League group stages. So while Ranieri goes through the rules again, just a quick reminder for you guys. Obviously, we've got the group stage draw coming up in just a moment's time. So do stick around. I'll get that all sorted out in a second. But don't forget, I'll be live in about an hour's time. Not 1:15, for the Conference League draw. So do stick around. It's at 12:15. Around the World in 80 Minutes. We'll be live with that tomorrow at 1 o'clock. The analysis show for the 5 main leagues. And then, of course, Deadline Day live. We will be doing some stuff for Deadline Day. But it won't be the 12-hour spectacle that we usually have. And then, of course, match day 1 of the Champions League and the Europa League. It will be covered live with the Goal Show. It's back from September. So if you do enjoy the Champions League and the Europa League, maybe you've not got access to it, and you're wondering how can I keep up to date with the scores and the goals, then come and join us. We do a Goal Show for the 2 respective competitions. And we'll also have the Conference League as well to juggle, so that should be fun on a Thursday. But yeah, Conference League draw coming up in about an hour's time. We'll be back again for that a little bit later on. Right then, I'm going to get myself ready for the draw. We will be stuck on this screen just for the moment being. If the draw works the same way as it did yesterday, then what will happen is it's very likely they'll draw the first pot, and then they will do an award ceremony, which they will basically give out the awards for last season's Europa League, and then they'll go on to the second pot. So there might be a little bit of a break in between each pot. Don't worry, not a long break. Usually takes about 2 or 3 minutes. And then we get into the next set of pots. Again, as well, do tell me in the chat if the screen doesn't update. Hopefully it does. But we're just waiting for that draw to start. So while we do, let's have a look and see what you guys have been saying in the chat. Kerem is saying he wants Napoli, Crvena Zvezda, Fenerbahce, and Ferencvaros all in the same group. I mean, that would be that group would be quite interesting. A very tough group. Lots of hostile atmospheres to go to. Hungary, Turkey, Serbia, and Italy. That would be certainly a very interesting spectacle of a group. But now they're saying what pot are Arsenal in? I mean, somebody was going to say Arsenal before the end of the day, weren't they? And of course it was going to be Ronaldo. Of course, good to see Tottenham getting through last night. I did watch the game. You played very well with your first team out. Peter is in the building. How are you doing, Peter? Welcome along to the stream. He's put hi all. Hopefully you're all good as always, Peter. And he's put, Chris, you're almost wrong. And you would have had egg on your face. We were so close. We were so close. But hey, you know what? At the end of the day, it was good fun indeed. And then Carl's put, forgot to mention yesterday, but like yesterday, please don't spoil teams that were drawn if you're watching it live. Josh is a bit behind. Yeah, I've got the YouTube stream up, so I will probably be about 30 seconds behind, but not to worry too much. With it being a draw, I'm not as fussed if you guys get excited in the chat. I know some of you guys, obviously, because I was synced up yesterday with Rowan and Kieran, it was a little bit harder to all be synced up perfectly to be able to watch it. But without further ado, we should be about to get underway with the draw. It's taken nearly 25 minutes from the point of where our stream started, or where their stream started, to the point of the draw. So apologies for the wait. It probably does mean I'll try and maybe put the stream for the Conference League maybe 10 or so minutes later. I'll start the stream, but I'll not actually start talking till about 10 minutes later because, of course, they take so bloody long to get through it. But without further ado, it's finally time to get underway with the draw. Pot 1 to begin. For those of you wondering who's in Pot 1 again, this is pot number 1. As you can see on your screen in about 2 seconds' time. Voila. Lyon, Napoli, Leverkusen in there. So starting off, first team out of the draw in this Europa League 2021-22 season is Olympic Lyon. And with the way that pot 1 works, it's very nice and easy. We can just put Lyon into Group A. Very, very nice, easy start. Just going to check. Do tell me if it doesn't update on your screen. I'm hoping that it does update and we shouldn't have any problems there. So Lyon, the first team out, they go into Group A. Next team out into Group B, AS Monaco, another French side. Of course, Monaco being knocked out of the Champions League qualification stages against Shakhtar. It means that they move into the Europa League and they're going to be in Group B. Moving on to Group C next. Of course, this stage of the draw isn't really exciting because there's nobody in the other sections of the groups yet to make it interesting. But Group C is going to have Napoli. Again, Napoli, interesting side. Don't know who they're managed by these days, to be honest with you. I feel like it's Spalletti who's in charge of them. I might be wrong. But Napoli go into Group C. And the final section of this page, at the very least, Olympiacos going into Group C. You'll remember, of course, last season Olympiacos in a very thrilling game against PSV Eindhoven. So we'll come back to that section of the draw in a moment. Let's move on now to Group E. We'll come back and we'll go through the teams again for those of you. Of course, I've had to split it up to 3 different pages. So the next team out is Lazio. They're going to go into Group E. Lazio had a new manager in charge of the club in Maurizio Sarri. Big season for them. I think they were a little bit disappointing last season in Serie A. Got the likes of Ciro Immobile, of course, at the club. Should hopefully bang in the goals this season in the Europa League. Group B is going to have SC Braga. Braga, of course, of Liga NOS. Managed by Carlos Carvajal. You might recognise his name. He was the former Sheffield Wednesday manager. Doing wonders in Portugal with Braga. So they go into Group F. Group G is going to have Leverkusen. As we said before, Leverkusen last season disappointing after being knocked out by Young Boys in what was probably the biggest shock of the tournament. And then the final group of this Europa League campaign, it's going to give us Dinamo Zagreb. They're going to go into Group H. And that, I believe, is pot 1 done and dusted. You might notice there are less and less groups in the Europa League this season. The groups have actually dropped. There's not as many groups as there were in the past. That is because of the Conference League. So going over the pots again very quickly, or the groups, as you can see on the screen right now, Lyon, Monaco, Napoli and Olympiacos make A, B, C and D. Lazio, Braga, Leverkusen, Dinamo, E, F, G and H. And then, of course, we don't have I and L this time around because we have less and less teams. Moving on now to pot number 2. We don't have to wait about this season, which is good. So, first team out is Rangers. And Rangers can be assigned to Group A. So, Lyon and Rangers making up Group A to start. I think that's a very exciting away day for Rangers, going over to France to face Peter Bosch's side. Lyon, of course, got plenty of quality players across the board. Next team out, though, from pot 2, PSV Eindhoven of the Netherlands. So PSV Eindhoven, they will go into Group B. Interesting group, that one. 2 teams that were actually knocked out of Champions League qualification are going to be coming up against each other. So that is AS Monaco and PSV Eindhoven in Group B. That one already looking like a very tasty group, if I say so myself. Moving on now to the next team out from pot number 2. As Jamie's in the building. Hope you're good, Jamie. Welcome along. Leicester City. Oh, what a group this could be. So Leicester City will be assigned to Group C. Wow, what a group that one is. That is the group of death. Napoli and Leicester to make up Group C. That one is a tasty one. And of course now, moving over to the next team out of the pot. This one, of course, will go to Group D. And that is going to be Lokomotiv Moscow. So, Lokomotiv going to go side... oh, no, they won't go into that group, actually. They're going to go into Group E alongside Lazio. So, I'm just going to very quickly change that. That will update on your screen in a little moment's time. So, Lokomotiv Moscow going into Group E alongside Lazio. Next team out of the draw is going to be Eintracht Frankfurt. And Frankfurt, I believe, should be assigned to Group D. Yes, so Olympiacos will be playing alongside Frankfurt in Group D, which means we can now move over to the other section of groups. There we go. And you guys should be able to see that on your screen. So we've got 3 more teams left from pot number 2. We will fully reflect over the draw in a moment's time. As you can see, Lokomotiv Moscow matched up with Lazio in Group E. The next team out, FK Crvena Zvezda, or more known as Red Star Belgrade to Europeans out there. Crvena Zvezda will go into Group, I think it's Group F, yes. So Crvena Zvezda will go alongside Braga. I'm just going to put Red Star for now because it's easier. That one's looking like a interesting group. So Group G and H left. 2 more teams left in the pot. And the team out of the pot is going to be Celtic. They can go into either Group G or H. And Celtic will be assigned to Group G. That one's an interesting one. Bayer Leverkusen and Celtic. Which means there's only one more team left in the pot. They're going to go into Group H alongside Dinamo Zagreb of Croatia. And that team coming out of the pot will be Genk. So that's quite a decent looking group for both of those teams. So to quickly run over before we move into pot 3. It is Real Mirza. It is live as we speak. Lyon and Rangers in Group A. Monaco and PSV in Group B. Napoli and Leicester in Group C. And Olympiacos and Frankfurt in Group D. Lazio and Lokomotiv Moscow in Group E. Braga and Crvena Zvezda, or Red Star Belgrade as they're known, in Group F. Leverkusen and Celtic in Group G. And then Dinamo Zagreb and Genk in Group H. We now move on to pot number 3. For those of you wondering who is in pot number 3, this is, in my opinion, the best pot of the lot. This is where it gets interesting. The likes of West Ham, Marseille and Ludogorets in there. So let's start off with Group number A. I think this should be a good turn. So the first team out, Marseille. Of course, they cannot go into Groups A or B. So Marseille will be assigned. Please tell me it's Group C. Because this is one hell of a group if it is. It isn't, sadly. It's Group E. So Marseille will go alongside Lazio and Lokomotiv Moscow. That one already looking like a very interesting group. Next team out, Sparta Prague of the Czech Republic. Sparta Prague will be assigned to Group A. So Lyon Rangers and Sparta Prague are in Group A. Not a bad looking group if I say so myself. Next team out, going to be Real Sociedad of La Liga. Please tell me they're going to Group B, and they do. What a group this one is. Wow. I mean, this one is looking like a bit of a group of death if I say so myself. AS Monaco, PSV Eindhoven, Real Sociedad. I mean, that could easily be a Champions League group of past. So Group B looking like the tastiest of the bunch. Next team out is going to be Spartak Moscow of Russia. I think they're managed these days by Dominik Tedesco. Spartak Moscow are going to go into Group C. I don't know if the Spartak representative is happy or not, but she's got a bit of an interesting reaction on her face because Spartak going into the group with Napoli and Leicester. And the next team out is Fenerbahce. And Fenerbahce will be going into Group, I think it's looking like they're going to go into Group D. Yeah, so Fenerbahce alongside Frankfurt and Olympiacos. That group is looking like quite an interesting one. Which now means we can move on to Groups E and H. Ludogorets, the next team out. The Bulgarian side. They will go into Group F, which I have to say, if you are a fan of either of these 3 teams, Braga or Red Star Belgrade or Ludogorets, I think that's looking like a very, very good group. A very favourable group for all 3 teams in there. Next team out of the draw is going to be Real Betis of Spain. And that means Real Betis are going to be going into Group G, I think. What a group this one is. Wow. I mean, Celtic don't seem to have the look of the draw when it comes to groups, because it's Leverkusen, Betis and Celtic in Group G. That one is looking very, very tasty, which means the final team out of the pot. And I tell you what, if you're a West Ham fan, welcome to the Europa League. You've been given quite a fun group, a very good one at the very least. Dinamo Zagreb and Genk are the two teams in your group. So to quickly run through the groups again. In Group A, Lyon, Rangers and Sparta Prague. In Group B, Monaco, PSV Eindhoven and Real Sociedad. In Group C, Napoli, Leicester, Spartak Moscow. And in Group D, Olympiacos, Frankfurt and Fenerbahce. I mean, I've got to say, Group B is looking very tasty indeed. Group E, Lazio, Lokomotiv Moscow, Marseille. Group F, Braga, Crvena Zvezda and Ludogorets. Group G, Leverkusen, Celtic, Real Betis. And then Group H, Dinamo Zagreb, Genk and West Ham. We move on to Pot 4 now, the final pot. As you can see, a few recognisable teams in there. Galatasaray being the most notable of the sides. So let's get it underway with the final section of the draw. Starting with... who's it going to be? First team out. Galatasaray of Turkey, the big dogs of Pot 4. They are going to be automatically assigned. And what, I tell you what a group this one is. They've automatically been assigned to Group E, which means Lazio, Marseille, Lokomotiv Moscow and Galatasaray. What a group that one is. That is a very, very good group for the Europa League, if I say so myself. So Galatasaray go into Group E, and that for me is a quality group of 4 very good sides from respective nations. Brøndby, the next team out of the draw from Denmark. Brøndby will be assigned into Group A. Not a bad draw for Brøndby. They're going to have a few decent away days to Scotland and France. Let's put that on the screen for you guys. There we go. So that is Group A completed. Let's see who comes out of the draw next. Some very, very interesting teams left in this section of the draw. And one of those teams is Sturm Graz of Austria, coming through yesterday in quite scintillating fashion in their qualification match. And Sturm Graz are going to be put into arguably one of the groups of death. Monaco, PSV, Sociedad and Sturm Graz. Should be a few good away days in there for the Austrians. Going to be nice trips to Spain, Netherlands and France. That should be a very fun group indeed. Moving on to the next team. Got a few more left before the end of this draw. I'm guessing whoever gets drawn out next should go into Group C. And that is going to be FC Midtjylland. And they're going to actually be assigned to Group F. Of course, with Brøndby being drawn out. Midtjylland will be put into Group F, which is going to be with Braga, Red Star Belgrade and Ludogorets. So I'll just put that up on the screen for you guys. There we go. Next team out, Legia Warsaw. Of course, made it through yesterday against Slavia Prague. And they are going to be assigned into Group C. What a group that one's looking to be. I'm going to put Legia for now. Napoli, Leicester, Spartak and Legia Warsaw. If Rowan, if you are in the building, I bet you're a little bit gutted that Slavia didn't make it in there, because you would have had a match against Leicester again. But either way, Legia Warsaw go into that group with Leicester City. Should be up on your screen now. Next team out, Royal Antwerp of Belgium made it through last night in a penalty shootout against Omonia Nicosia. That game ending 4-4 on aggregate. They were actually 4-2 down, Antwerp. They're going to go into Group D alongside Olympiacos, Frankfurt and Fenerbahce. So we'll come back to that draw in a second. That one's looking like quite a tasty group, Group D. We've got 2 more teams left to finish off this Europa League draw. First team out is Ferencváros of Hungary. Of course, Ferencváros last season having a very, very tough Champions League campaign. And guess what? They've got, I believe, a very, very tough Europa League campaign because they're going to be in the group of death with Leverkusen, Celtic and Real Betis. So unlucky for Ferencváros, back-to-back ridiculously tough draws. I think that's the hardest group of the lot, if I'm being honest with you. And then the final team out of the Europa League draw is Rapid Vienna. I think they will be absolutely buzzing with that draw. It's a very, very good group, that one, for the likes of Dinamo Zagreb and Genk. And that concludes the draw. So to run through the draw once again for those of you guys that might have just joined and you're wondering who's facing who in the Europa League this season. Group A, Olympique Lyonnais, Rangers, Sparta Prague and Brøndby. Group B, AS Monaco, PSV Eindhoven, Real Sociedad, Sturm Graz. Group C, Napoli, Leicester City, Spartak Moscow and Legia Warsaw. And then Group D, Olympiacos, Frankfurt, Fenerbahce and Royal Antwerp. Group E, Lazio, Lokomotiv Moscow, Marseille and Galatasaray. Group F, SC Braga, Crvena Zvezda, or Red Star Belgrade as they're known, Ludogorets and FC Midtjylland. Group G, Leverkusen, Celtic, Real Betis and Ferencváros. And then finally Group H, Dinamo Zagreb, Genk, West Ham and Rapid Vienna. Some very, very tasty groups in there. You know, we said beforehand, because the way that the pots have worked, it was very likely we were going to get one or two very, very tough groups. And I think we've certainly got that. We'll go through those in a second. But very, very quickly, just want to say, don't forget, we have got the Europa Conference League draw coming up at around about 12:15. So don't miss out on that. That is coming up a little bit later on. But to quickly just analyse the draw, I've got to say, looking at the first four groups, there's some really, really good groups in there. I mean, I'm looking specifically at groups B and probably C and D, I think. I mean, Group B looks very tasty. Three sides of high quality should, bring some entertaining games. Group C, very, very interesting there. You've got two clear favourites and then two teams which will be fighting for the third place spot to move down to the Conference League. And then, of course, Group D is a very even group, I have to say. Four very good sides from their respective nations. That one should be a really good group indeed. And then, of course, looking at the rest of the pack, Group E, for me, is a standout. Four very good teams in there. Galatasaray, Marseille, Lazio and Lokomotiv Moscow. That is a very, very good group. And I think all four ties between those sides should be very fun to watch. Let's not forget Lokomotiv Moscow were in the Champions League last season. So were Marseille. I think Lazio were in the Europa League last season. I might be wrong. They might have been in the Champions League as well. But a few very good teams in there. Group F, probably the weakest of the lot. You could probably say Group H is the weakest. But either way, I don't think it matters in terms of how weak it is. I think the all-important thing is that all four teams in both those groups have a very good chance of making it out of the group stages and into the knockout rounds. In Group F, I think that's a very tasty one. If you're a West Ham fan, you're delighted with Group H. I think that is a quality draw for West Ham. You might not be facing many big teams, but what it does mean is there's a very good chance that you can make it out of the group stages and into the knockout rounds. And then finally for me, Group G, another standout group. Leverkusen, Celtic, Real Betis. Fantastic group. Alongside Ferencváros, the Hungarians, of course, who will not be any pushovers in the slightest. They were very, very good last season in the Champions League. And no doubt should be thrilling opposition again. So for those of you wondering when the Europa League is on, the first Europa League match day is in just a few weeks' time, 16th of September for the first match day of the Europa League. The second match day coming 2 weeks afterwards, and of course 2 weeks after that, pretty much for the rest of the league campaign. So that is it for the Europa League draw. As I said a moment ago, don't forget I'll be live around about 12:15, not 1:15, for the first ever Europa Conference League draw. What's going to happen in there? We'll find out. Some big teams, the likes of Roma and Union Berlin in there. Join us for Around the World in 80 Minutes. That's going to be tomorrow rather than tonight. Our analysis show and analysing the weekend's action in the top 5 leagues. We're going to have some content available on deadline day. That is on Tuesday. We'll have a live show at night time for that. And then, of course, the Champions League and the Europa League is back. Match day 1 starting on the 14th of September. And, of course, we'll have the Conference League as well we'll be covering with the Europa League on the 16th of September. Looking forward to that indeed. Don't forget, check out our social media links as always. Our Twitter is at @_top_corner. And our Instagram is _sportscorner_. You can check when we do go live on the channel. The links are in the description as always. But as for now, a big thank you to all of you guys that have joined. Don't forget to leave a like and a subscription on the channel. I'll be back in around about just above half an hour's time as we get ready for the Europa Conference League draw. Let's see what that brings. But as for now, have a fantastic morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. And hopefully, we'll see you in about half an hour's time. Don't go anywhere.